First of all, I'm blessed that anybody would come and see anything I do, so I'm very grateful that you guys are here. I don't think that anyone in this room would understand how much of a journey it was to get to where we are today. And I don't say that even lightly at all. This was a catastrophic failure at 10 different levels. It's like the gods didn't want the public to see this, and I kid you not. So, at the end of the movie, there were a series of credits you didn't see. We're trying to work it out that you can see them at the end. But there's a couple of people that just have got to be acknowledged because this would never have happened without them. So, I went through 3 different film crews on this shoot, and that's the first time that's ever happened. And for a variety of reasons, COVID, et cetera, it just seemed like nothing worked. People walked, people didn't want to work, et cetera. But went through 3 different crews. And my breadth in this industry is not that big. I'm a very small nobody out here, and trying to find the expertise to get it done from who I know is almost impossible. And so on the technical side of this, to get it completed, to get it to where it is, there's really this one person that did that. And that man is sitting right over there. His name is Jim Martin. Stand up, Jim. Stand up. I met Jim back on the first movie, and we've gotten to be friends, and Jim stepped up and helped me beyond belief. And a very patient soul to deal with somebody like me, I'm eternally blessed for that. Now, this is the 3rd movie I've ever made. This is really the first one that taxed me beyond my understanding of any project ever. So back about a year and 10 months ago, the guy who made the first movie of mine, my son, took his own life, and it was in the middle of this. It's hard to understand how I was able to ever complete it. And I will tell you that the darkest days in my life happened around this. And there's only one person in my world that helped me seriously through it all and helped me manage the process to get it here and manage my own brain, and that's Angie. And I think that a lot of the focus is on me, but really she's a victim in all this too, because she was as close to Ben as all of his friends and everybody. And when this all happened, it just took us by storm. And I get a lot of hate mail on YouTube and such because in my videos I talk about mental health. And I don't really care, because we're all in this together. And for whatever COVID did to all of us, it took a toll on us mentally. There's a man here today who's helping me on this production. I just met him today. And I found out his son took his life just recently. I can't believe it. I don't want this to be about a big downer thing, but I also don't want it to bypass what it's meant to me as a person. I look at life a lot different. And the people that you saw in this video, that lost a loved one. I have great empathy for that. So where's Daniela Salmon? Daniela, right in the middle of the theater. She lost her husband, Ray. When I met her in Vancouver, sat down in her house, and we talked about her story, it's a big deal to me that the people that are in my movies approve of the way I talk about their loved one. And that's a big nervous part of me whenever the movie's seen. And for her to sit down and talk to me, a stranger, and open up about what happened to her, wow. I walked out of there and the videographer and I just said, that's a disaster. I mean, you spend that many decades with somebody and then they're not here with you anymore. Wow. And in the missing persons world, we just tend to forget that compassionate side about what's happening to these people, not just to the person who's not here, but what happens to the families. Other people. The men that saw that giant UFO craft come over. Chris, sitting right here, one of the hunters. One of the nicest guys ever. I really enjoyed spending time with Chris and Rob and hearing their story and trying to get across to you in my own way that these guys are credible. Please don't take any video in here. In my own way. Because it's hard sometimes to get across to an audience how credible somebody is. Because I think I'm a pretty good judge of reading people. And Chris and Rob were ultra credible, to the point Chris couldn't even stay there that night. So I'm very grateful. The man who's the MC here today, been friends for a long time, and he's been a big supporter of mine. And we kid around a lot sometimes about the Bigfoot world and the UFO world. 45 days ago, I was in this room giving a presentation to Phoenix MUFON. And what I said then is that sometimes in the UFO world, everybody in the front row might be a PhD. And then you go to a Bigfoot conference and everyone in the front row might just be a hillbilly. There's just a difference. But the difference is still, we're all people here, and we're all trying to get along, and we're all trying to understand what's happening. Now, one more person, well, first of all, Jim Mann, who is from MUFON, got all of this to work. And folks, just before we started this, nothing was working here. Nothing. No, I'm not kidding you. It was nothing was working. The sound still doesn't work right. But we got to see it. Now, where's Stacy at? Stacy. Oh, Stacy, right there. Right there. That lady is the reason we are all here in this room. She knocked down some walls for us here at this facility. Thank you. 1,000,000%. A lot of this was filmed at the Montana Vortex, owned by Joe and Tammy Hauser, who are in the back row back there. Another important person in my life who's here. How many people in here watch Missing 411, The Hunted? Wow. Wow. Okay. Remember the Sierra Sounds? When we were up there in the Sierras on that site, Ron Moorhead is in the back room wearing a cowboy hat. You know, you get to know somebody after you camp with them for 8 days, and I learned a lot about Ron. First of all, one of the nicest human beings on earth, and one of the best campfire cooks in the world. And I'm not kidding, Ron. I appreciated every meal. And it was too bad. Nothing strange happened while we were up there, but it was a great bonding experience, and it was kind of the hub of that haunted movies, and got to be good friends for it. So I'm blessed. And then you guys. The first crowd for Missing 411 that we ever did in Denver, there were 100 people that we had at a theater. Second time, there was 150. This time, we went to almost 300. Now, this was sold out. And for whatever reason, people didn't show up, but it was sold out. And it's grown a lot. And the hardest thing on my end is to continue to find highly credible information to talk to you all about and give it to you in a way that's understandable. Now, the best thing you can do for me is when you go home is to write something up about the movie on your social media and kind of get the bug going. The reason this is a month out from the beginning, it wasn't supposed to be that way, and you can talk to Jim about that, but the distribution company kind of blew it. It was supposed to get released on November 15th instead of December 12th. But we're going to wait a month, and hopefully, we'll get the vibe going, and we'll get things going, and people will talk about it. But first thing I'm going to do is, when I was speaking at Phoenix MUFON a month and a half ago, some friends from around the nation came, just like here. We have people from Canada, New York, Connecticut, Washington, all over the US and parts of Canada. And a man named Jonathan Dover is here. And I'm going to have John kind of explain himself to him. But when you heard George Knapp say that my research might be attached to Skinwalker Ranch, how many people here have watched that Skinwalker Ranch series on the History Channel? Okay, that's good. Well, Jonathan was on that show. And the things he said, I'm going to roll it over with you guys as it comes up. But when George Knapp said that the Department of, what was it? NSA was at the ranch for 3 years. The NSA supervisor is the one that went to George and said, hey, Paulides' research, we think it has something to do with what's going on at the ranch. Now, he validated it because the person came out in public and said it. It's the only person's research that they've ever associated with what's going on at the ranch. Don't know what that means? They won't tell me what part of my research they've aligned with what's going on, but I think it was interesting that George said it, and then in the last 6 months, that guy from NSA came up forward and said, yeah, I'm the guy who said it. But in the meantime, let's invite up Jonathan Dover.